این الان تاپیکی که الان داری در موردش حرف میزنی اکچولی خیلی تاپیک خوبیه که من دوست دارم در موردش حرف بزنیم اگه میتونیم تو انگلیسی بکنیم که مردم هم بفهمن. So we're going to transition into English. I want to talk to him about this since he is located in the United Kingdom. I want to ask you this because I see this a lot and I want to see how truthful this is because, you know, I watch shows like Piers Morgan and et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, there's a lot of clips that come out of the UK and Europe in general where they're saying, oh, Islam is taking over the country. Is that accurate? Like, do you see Islam taking over Europe or is that over exaggerated?
Islam is not, if you ask me, Islam is not really taking over Europe. The thing is, the government seems to be scared. It's not seems, the government is scared of the Muslims. One, because of their aggression. Secondly, because of their population, right? And because of those two things that I just mentioned, they allow them to do more than a Christian preacher or any other faith, you know? And they seem to get away with a lot of things. And, you know, they scratch each other's back. You know, not all Muslims are just people out on the streets, you know, dressed in long gowns. Some of them, I mean, the mayor of London is a Muslim. They got people in the government. They got police officers. They have strong connection. They have links, you know? So that's the thing. And the only way they can overcome this is by banning Islam itself, full stop. I'm just going to get straight to the point. Because the evil that comes from Islam is in the text, you know? And, yeah,
So let me ask you this, because I think a lot of it is also, so I agree with you. I think a lot of it is because they're fearful of Muslims. I also think a lot of it is because, you know, countries like Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, they're donating a shit ton of money to Europe, you know? Like England, look how much they donated to Prince Charles, Saudi Arabia alone, you know, to schools. So I think they're a lot more tolerant for Islam simply because the elites in Europe are taking a lot of money from those governments, so they have to let all these Muslims come over and shit all over their countries. I think a lot of it is also that, on top of the fear, obviously.
for sure, you're 100% right. And let's take a look at ISIS. Now, the ideology of ISIS came from where? Saudi Arabia, from Wahhabism, which is something that I think is is practiced the right word? Is how the sheikhs, you know, what's the crown prince of Saudi's name? I don't remember.
Oh, MBS, Mohammed. Yeah, Ben Salman, yeah.
Yeah, he's Wahhabi, you know, the old Wahhabism is a branch of Sunnism, and their ideology came from there. And, you know, the UK was actually arming ISIS in the beginning because they were known as ISIS. They were called the rebels against Assad's regime, you know, and then later down the line, now, I don't know if they were playing dumb or they knew from the beginning that they were putting arms in the hands of terrorists. You know, they found out, there's a terrorist group, they stopped arming them, and that was it. So, yes, you know, people might think, what's the connection between what you just said and what I'm saying now? Well, the connection is this. You mentioned the powerful people across the Middle East, and I'm talking about the Arabs from Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. And yes, they are funding these things, and they are, you know, they play a big part in what's going on. I don't know the ins and outs, of course, because I'm not a Muslim. I'm not involved with the Muslim community. I don't have any Muslim friends. So, you know, yeah. And now, yeah.
So real quick, because obviously in the beginning of the conversation, we're speaking Farsi, so 99% of the people won't understand what we said. So if you can, just kind of, you know, give a summary of your background in English, just so people know where you know, your background as far as where you're from.
Well, I'm a Persian Jew, an Iranian Jew. You know, my dad's family came from Mashhad, the city of Mashhad. They were actually crypto Jews who were Jews in public and Muslim. They were Jews in private and Muslims in public. My mom's family came from the city of Isfahan, and they weren't practicing Jews. Some of them wouldn't even say they're Jews. And, you know, my dad was a hardcore Zionist, And as you know, the media and the news in Iran is very much like, sorry, very much on the Arab sides, and they show the Arabs, shall I say, the so-called Palestinians as the victims, and they show the Israelis, or shall I say, the Jews as the monsters, and that's not true, of course. And my dad told me from the age of 5, 6, I remember till now, that do not get brainwashed by what you see. And he explained to me that yes, before the state of Israel was established, Jewish people went to the land that already had a presence in the land that belongs to them, and they bought land and they paid the Arab sheikhs or whatever who were living there. And generations later, the great grandchildren of these Arabs want to, protest and say, give back our land. But, no one stole any land from you in the first place. And if anything, we paid for what was ours. So, and, he explained this to me, and that stuck with me from young. That was the only thing that I considered Jewish that existed in my life. But there was no religion in my house, and I had to grasp hold of Judaism for myself, because being ethnically Jewish and being a religious Jew, sorry, is two different things. Because Judaism, unlike other religion, is a religion and an ethnicity.
Right.
So yeah, and I came to the UK at the age of 14. I lived in France for 1 year, and here I am, living in a country that I don't like. People might ask, why are you here, or why did you come here? Well, I wasn't the decision maker of my life as a minor, because, I don't know of any 12-year-old who just gets on a plane and goes to another country without their parents' consent or without an adult accompanying them, So I, of course, my older brother, because I lost my mom at the age of 6 or 7, and my dad, I don't know if he's still alive or not, but we lost contact long time ago, and he was imprisoned actually. And so yeah, I was brought to this country. If I
Was he a
knew this
political
country would
prisoner?
be,
Was he a political prisoner?
no, not a political prisoner, actually. He got himself involved with, he was heavily into the drug trade. He was
Gotcha.
a, educated businessman who just was greedy, I guess, and wanted to live a lavish life, and he just had the wrong approach, So, yeah. And that, of course, made it difficult for me to live in Iran, and I was told that I have no future. If I knew that this country would be the way it is, I would have probably stayed in Iran, or I would have went to a different European country, to be quite frank,
How
because I haven't had a pleasant experience since I've been in the UK, and I'm talking about with varieties of people, for different reasons, because of my hair color, because of my complexion, because of many things. Yes.
so out of curiosity, you said you were in Iran until you were what, 12? Around 12
Yes,
years old?
just under the age of 13. Yes.
So as an Iranian Jew, what was your experience of living in Iran?
Well, like I said, my parents weren't practicing, and I didn't know that I was Jewish from birth. And it's not like my mom used to light Shabbat candles, or my dad
Okay,
used to go to
gotcha.
the synagogue, or I used to see my dad putting on tefillin on his arm every morning. It wasn't a thing like that. So it wasn't like I just experienced Iran as an Iranian, to be quite frank
Gotcha.
with you. And even that itself wasn't really nice, because uh, there's people with some dark mindsets in Iran. Not only the ones who are pro-government, but there's people who, you go from Tehran to Isfahan with an Isfahani accent, and they call you stingy, you Isfahani stingy. That's the stereotype.
Right.
And these things, I'm quite a sensitive person, but we're not here to discuss all of that. But, these things did get under my skin quite a lot as a kid. And there was other things that was quite dark that I'd much rather not discuss on the internet that happened to me. And yeah, so it was not a nice place, because the future is just looks uncertain for somebody, especially like myself, who has basically no mom and dad. Who had no mom and dad. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So I had a conversation with a Israeli Jew, and he asked me a question, and I wasn't really sure how to answer it. And again, this channel is, my channel is only a week old. I don't like, I'm just a regular Iranian person living in America. Like, I don't have the political background, so I don't have all the information. So this is more so like a journey for me to inform people, but also learn at the same time. So there's certain things I have no clue about, and I'm hoping maybe you can shed some light on this question because I didn't really honestly have an answer for it. So the Israeli Jew asked me a question. He was like, one of my Iranian friends told me that there's still about 10,000 Jews living in Iran. And he asked me, he said, do you think the IRGC, their goal is to eliminate Jews? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if their goal is to eliminate Jews, but it's certainly to eliminate Israel, right? And then he asked me, he said, well, how are these 10,000 people living in Iran? Why aren't they just killing these people then? What do you think the reason for that is? Because I genuinely didn't have really like an answer for that.
First of all, my view on the Iranian Jews living in Yusufabad in particular and in other cities, I think in Hamadan, I'm not sure. But anyway, uh, I see them as puppets to the government, especially the spokespersons for the Jewish community, the chief rabbi of Iran, whom I like to refer to as the chief clown of Iran, actually. Uh, and they are puppets for sure. And I'll give you an example now. Any ultra Orthodox Jew or even a modern Orthodox Jew, I can't really speak on conservative or reform, would tell you that as Jews, we believe in a written Torah and we believe in the oral Torah. Now, the written Torah is the 5 books of Moses, Chumash, or, Pentateuch, and is in the section of the book what the Christians call the Old Testament. And for Jews, of course, that's the only testament. We don't believe in the New Testament. But anyway, and we have the oral Torah, which is the Talmud. Now, if you look on YouTube, I don't have the link to give you for this video. There's a propaganda video of Iran that shows this goat, or I don't know if it's a goat or a cow figure, which like they're called
Oh,
Bao, which
Bao,
they,
yeah, yeah.
some
I saw
conspiracy
that.
theory nonsense that apparently we worship this figure, which is total rubbish. It just shows how low the IQ is. But anyway, they, in the propaganda video, they show this figure, and guess what? The book that he's holding says on. Guess what it says on the book that he's holding? Talmud Bavli. Talmud Bavli is our oral Torah. The oral Torah is in the Talmud Bavli. Not all of it, because we have the book of Zohar, we have the Midrashim, and so on and so forth. But anyway, I'm not going to go too in detail because that's irrelevant right now. So for them to show that they think that the Talmud is an evil book, that just shows you that they are against Judaism, full stop. And being against Judaism, you can't destroy religion. They're going to destroy who practices religion and then destroy the religion itself, right? Because there would be no religion if people didn't practice it. The
Right.
religion would vanish.
Non-existent, yeah.
So that's it. But now talking about these so-called, I can't call them so-called Jews. I'm not here to tell anyone they're Jews or not Jews. Because I sometimes, I've had a hard time to prove my Judaism to some people, and there's people in the Jewish community who think I am Jewish. There's people who think I might be Jewish, and there's people who think that I'm not Jewish. And you can ask me questions about that as well if that's relevant to our discussion right now. So anyway, yeah, the government, the chief rabbi talks about that the government of Iran is not against the government, not Iran, sorry, let me rephrase that. The government of Islamic Republic of Iran is not against Judaism, they're against Zionism, and their proof is that, we have over 30 synagogues, we are free to practice, and so on and so forth, which to me is absolute nonsense, is rubbish, he's talking lies, and look, as a religious Zionist Jew, I believe that the land itself is a major part of the Torah, and not only that, is one of the commandments. And there are Jews who are anti-Zionists. I have friends who are ultra-Orthodox from the Chassidus called Satmar, and they are anti-Zionists, and they believe that we should not go to the land until the Mashiach, or shall I say, or the Messiah, sorry, comes. And our Jews, they argue and say, no, we can go to the land and make way for Mashiach to come. And they say we shouldn't have an army. We say we should have an army. There's a lot of, differences of opinion, and this is can be a very sensitive topic for some people, because there are Jews who actually go and join pro-Palestinian rallies and they wave the flag of this nonsense.
Are they mostly
And they say
Orthodox?
that Zionism is opposed to Judaism. Yes.
Are
So
they
sorry.
so the ones that support Palestine, the Israelis that support Palestine, are they mostly Orthodox Jews?
No, some of them are ultra orthodox, and some of them are lefty, atheists, or even like,
Okay.
I don't know, reform. But some of them are like atheists, like just lefties, just Jewish by ethnicity. I'll give you an example. Bernard Sanders, if I'm saying his name right?
Bernie Sanders.
This idiot. Yeah, he's a perfect example of a lefty. I can't even call him a Jew, but a lefty Jew who supports them. And then you get a guy who looks like one of the holiest people you'd ever meet, with a big beard, long peyot, a large hat, long suit, and he's there protesting side by somebody who really hates Jews. But this whole Palestine movement is really giving somebody who is an anti-Semite is giving them is allowing them to express their hatred for Jews without getting arrested. Because we both know, if in America or the UK, with everything that's happening, if somebody really went up to a Jew and said things that are anti-Semitic, then they would get arrested. So the only way they can express their hatred is through these rallies, and we can see how bad it's got now. You saw the attacks in Golders Green. The attacks in Golders Green. It happened in the space of, I don't know, a few weeks, a month, something like that. I don't know. I don't watch TV, just so you know. I just follow up what I want to follow up through my mobile phone. I don't have my laptop at the moment. That's why you see me on my mobile phone talking to you. And yeah, so this freedom of speech has turned into hate speech, because people are they're just allowing it excessively to happen. But I don't want to go off topic, so feel free to ask me the next question. I hope I've answered your question.
No, you did. You did. I appreciate it. I have two questions for you. So one, obviously, I think your background is very interesting. So I do want to ask you this question, because both of us grew up in Iran. Obviously, I was born in Iran. Same with you. So we probably have a very similar experience as far as growing up there. I saw a lot of people in Iran, which traumatized me as a child. Get bullied and arrested by the IRGC under the banner of Islam, right? So, we've seen thousands of our people get killed under the name of religion. So for me, I'm not an atheist, by the way. I believe in God, but I've never been able to identify with a religion, because it's left such a bad taste in my mouth growing up. And that's been my only exposure to religion, is Islam. So based on that, I've always been like, no, thank you. I've kind of been through this, does not work for me. So I'm very much interested, since you mentioned that you didn't even know you were Jewish growing up in Iran. How did you get around to embracing Judaism when you had such an experience in Iran? That's very interesting to me, that you were able to do that.
So before my dad was incarcerated, before he was put in prison, he took me inside of his car. I remember to this day, and we was living in the city of Isfahan at the time, and he was actually on the run because he was given what you call morkhasi. I don't know how to say it in English. Like
it's like
from a jail sentence, so they let you. Yeah, and he was given a date, of course, to return, but instead of returning, we left the city of Tehran and we went to Isfahan. And there he started a new life, and he had a wife. My mom had passed away a long time ago by then, and then him and his wife were having issues, so he while he was talking to me about what was happening with him and his wife, because he was saying, look, don't think that I've lost my mind, because she was cheating on him anyway. So he said, look, this is my plan. We're going to go to the UK very soon. Because before that, before he got married, just shortly after my mother died, my brother, who was in the UK, he sent an invitation for me and my dad to literally come to literally, oh, sorry, to come to the UK. And literally all we had to do is to buy a ticket and come to the UK, through the legal routes.
Yeah.
And, that would have been a life changer for me. It would have probably done me way more favors than what I had to experience for the past decade and a half. But anyway, let me not go off topic. And please forgive me, Shane, because I struggle with my grammar sometimes. I suffer from anxiety disorder, and
All good, man.
sometimes that can have an effect on how I'm speaking.
Take your time,
So I
brother.
hope I'm not annoying you or your audience. Please
No.
forgive me,
Take your time,
everyone.
brother. Take your time, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, yeah, so as he was talking to me about that, I think I was around the age of 11 something. He went on to say that, look, that, comes from a Jewish background and so on and so forth. And I was in a bit of a shock, and it wasn't something like, oh, I wish I didn't hear that. Uh, and it wasn't a thing like, oh wow, I feel much better. I was just like, okay, it was a bit of a shocker. And he didn't really tell me about my mom's family, and at the time I wasn't smart enough to say, hey, does my mom have a Jewish background, or tell me exactly what happened. But I just heard what he said, and he told me not to tell anyone in school or anything like that, because
Yeah.
and I went private school, thank God. I didn't have to go public school, so, but still, he told me to keep it to myself. And to cut the long story short, Shane, when I left Iran at the age of 12, I went to Turkey, and unfortunately, oh, sorry, with my dad, what happened? He had plans to leave the UK finally, because when my brother sent an invitation, he ripped it and he said, "No, I don't want to be in the West. I'm comfortable on my own soil. This is my home. Why would I want to go to the West?" And he messed up my future to some extent. But anyway, then he changed his mind, and he was saying that his wife had a lot of information on him, and because he had breached his morkhasi, or his break from prison, something that doesn't really exist in the West. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was afraid of his wife, so he said, "Look, don't worry. We're gonna go soon." And a couple of days after that, I remember coming home from school, and my dad was gone, and I haven't seen him since. Yeah. So anyway, so when I came to the UK, but sorry, when I came to the European soil, I had this, Jewishness in me, that yes, I have a Jewish dad, and Star of David is a symbol of Judaism, Israel, and Israel is a land that belongs to the Jewish people, and we're not the bad guys, and that was literally it. But it's not something that I would bring up to people, because religion didn't interest me, and especially as a traumatized little kid who had suffered many things. I'm talking about both emotional and physical abuse in Iran. I was just trying to, I was thinking about my next PlayStation game, next snack that I'm gonna have. I
Right.
wasn't concerned about religion. I didn't, just kind of like yourself, I was put off religion to some extent. And yeah, so I lived in France for 1 year, and then when I came to the UK, I, got caught up with the wrong crowd, and I unfortunately ended up in prison. First time it was for a fight. It was violence, of course, not against women or anything. I was only about the age of 16 at the time. By just before I turned 17, I was put in prison. And then when I came out of prison, I was living the life of an atheist guy. I already had a Star of David tattooed on my hand, and I was this guy who was, pro-Israel, and I didn't even know about Jewish laws, that if your mother's not Jewish, you're not Jewish. But I just had this sense of Jewishness in me. And then to cut the long story shorter, When I went prison the second time now, I remember meeting this guy from Israel, who, we ended up moving into the same cell together. And he asked me about my background and he told me and he accepted me as a Jew, whereas some Jewish people wouldn't do so, not out of, animosity or, God forbid, racism. It's just that, they won't, not that they wouldn't accept me, but they won't tell me things that don't concern me because I wouldn't be considered Jewish as somebody who
Right.
just has a Jewish dad, right? So he, thank God, luckily, he taught me how to put on tefillin. He taught me, something called Pirkei Avot. I'm sure your Jewish audience would know what I'm talking about, or Pirkei Avos, the ethics of the fathers is wisdom, And he taught me more stuff, and he told me, listen, you're better than that. You're putting yourself down. Why are you behaving like this urban council flat gangster wannabe from South London? You're better than that. Come, go to the Jewish community, go to the synagogues. You will meet great people. And he just encouraged me to, get closer to God. And he did a great job, of course, and all the love and respect to Asaf. My heart goes out to him. He's in Israel. I haven't, spoken to him for a very long time. But then after that, I met an ultra Orthodox rabbi who taught me Judaism. Not only, five books of Moses, the book of Psalms, and the book of Proverbs. No, he taught me deep Judaism from a halachic point of view. Halachic is how to carry out the law. So we have dinim, which are the laws, and we have halacha, which explains how to carry out the laws of God. So to get to the point, he, taught me Judaism, and then when I was already this guy walking around in an area called Stamford Hill in North London with a kippah, with tzitzis, dressed like an Orthodox Jew, I, decided to leave London and I went to the city of Leeds where I have a cousin who lives there. And when I was there, a cousin of mine from Australia sees me and he pulls me aside. He takes me to a room and he says, I heard you're into Judaism, with a smile on his face. And I was like, yeah, it's doing wonders for me. I've become a different person. I haven't reoffended, and, I only got arrested for drug charges and violence and things like that, Shane, just to be very clear. Uh, and he, said, well, I've got something to tell you, but please just keep it to yourself because some family members, you might not get a positive reaction from some of our family members. And there's people from our family living in Iran who don't want this to be publicized. So he went on to say that yes, my great grandmother from my mother's side was actually a Polish refugee. Now people might think, well, hold on, what's the connection between her and Poland? Look, Shaheen, the information is out there. You can go and look on the internet, see what I'm talking about. She was a Polish refugee who came during the World War II, an orphan, I think through Russia, and she stayed in Iran. She was adopted by an Iranian family in the city of Isfahan. And yeah, so now me knowing that having just a Jewish dad doesn't make me Jewish, and then finding out that, oh, now my mother's Jewish as well, so I'm a full-on Jew. I was, of course, I was all over the moon.
Right.
Not that I felt less of a human, because even if somebody's not Jewish, if they want to be Jewish, I can't ask somebody to be Jewish. A Jew would never try to convert you. We're not a missionary religion, but they can convert. And well, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I was over the moon, and I went back to the Jewish community again because Leeds didn't really work out for me, and I carried on with my journey. And there was this individual now, Shaheen, and please stop me if there's another
No,
question
no,
you need to
no.
ask. So there was an individual in London, I'm just going to say London, from the Jewish community who I fell out with. And remember, I told you that my dad's family, they were crypto Jews. So they had taken was Persian / Arabic type of names to blend in with the population. Because what happened to the Mashhadi Jews? they were given a choice between life and death, and okay, you're either gonna be Jewish and die, or you're gonna, not be Jewish publicly and you're gonna live. And they chose to be crypto Jews. So their names weren't so Jewish, or not Jewish at all. And he went and communicated with the chief clown, or shall I say, the chief rabbi of Iran, Yehuda Garami, who goes on the news and cries for Khamenei, Yemach Shemo v'zichro. What I just said means may his name be wiped out, is a Hebrew saying. Anyway, Shaheen, he told him, based on the names, I never claimed that I know this man. I never claimed that I had a family of rabbis who were going to synagogue every day, and we had Shabbat, and I went to yeshiva, and I never made any of those things. Based on the names that I stupidly gave him, he even communicated with this guy and got him to write a letter to say, Kurosh, I'd much rather not say my surname on this website. He is not a Jew. Okay, that did kind of do some damage to me in the community, because I had people coming up to me saying, questioning me, are you Jewish? Are you not Jewish? Are you Jewish? Are you not Jewish? Which doesn't bother me anymore. But thank God, after a year of living outside of London, about a year and a half, I went back to the community, and I received a lot of support from my friends, coming mainly from the Hasidic community. If the guys with the
Yeah.
big stramas,
Yeah.
and I'm still in touch with them. I see them almost every week, and I have close ties. And they said, look, we accept you as a Jew. Not everybody. I'm gonna be honest with you, Shayan. That's not everybody. Some people think that I'm not Jewish. Some people think that I might be, so some people think I am. Well, anyway, I'm friends with those, of course, who think that I am Jewish, and they said that, look, we believe you. They see the letter from the rabbi, they're like, we don't even care about that. We're still going to support you, but all we want from you is to, stay with the community, because if you walk away from the community, then you're going to become irreligious. And, they're religious, so they would want another Jew to be religious like them as well. But it's not a matter of dictatorship. There's no dictatorship. No one would ever, I don't know, like the Islamic Republic of Iran would come and give you lashes and, I don't know, embarrass you in public just because you don't want to be a devout, Jew or anything like that. It doesn't work like that. Judaism doesn't work like that. There's no dictatorship. So anyway, they encouraged me, with soft words, and that's something that I wanted for myself anyway. It's not like I was trying to walk away from Judaism, which this did come off my head a few times, Shane. I'm not gonna lie to you, but hopefully it stays on my head forever. And they said, look, you better off staying here, because I was kind of having ups and downs with the community, and I was responsible to some extent as well, but I don't really want to get into that. So what happened was but they said to me that, look, if you want to, move forward and be fully accepted by everybody in the Jewish world, not only in London or across the world, in Israel, in America, in Belgium, in Canada, there's a process called a Gior Lechomra. What is a Gior Lechomra? The word Gior means conversion. Now, Gior Lechomra applies to somebody who is accepted by a Jew, but because he doesn't have the marriage certificate of his mother or his bris milah, his circumcision certificate, he goes through the process. He gets something like a license that would allow him to, move about in the Jewish community without any questions, to get married, to send his children. So it was for my own benefit. And, I had my ups and downs. I had to think about it because, I was, I would say out of stupidity, I was thinking that, oh no, I'm not gonna, downgrade myself, and I'm a Jew. What do I need to prove? What do you think that I need the community to support me? No, I don't. And the rabbi had to plead. He had to, I wouldn't say. He had to, kind of like ask me nicely, please do it for you. It's good. You're not lowering yourself. There's nothing bad about that. It's just a procedure. So that's where I stand right now, Shane, as far as Judaism. And yeah, and I'm still, I've still got strong contacts with my friends from the Jewish community. They are like my family, and they would give me any support that they can in their power. The only people who call my phone is not my family in Iran or my family in Australia or in Sweden. It's always somebody from the Jewish community. So yeah, and yeah. So next question. I hope
So
I haven't lost you
no, no,
anywhere.
no.
Yeah.
You actually, I appreciate the complete breakdown. I really do appreciate that. So you actually mentioned something that's insanely interesting to me because I thought, when you see most Iranians in the diaspora, most of them are successful. Most of them have never been to jail. Most of them haven't had a rough upbringing. I'm one of those that I did go through that. I did get arrested a lot. I did get in a lot of fights when I first came to the United States. And a lot of it was, similar to you. My mom separating from my dad, me being traumatized from Iran, entering a new country, 9/11 happening immediately when I entered the country, and everybody saying, oh, you're a fucking terrorist now. So it honestly makes me feel a little bit better about my upbringing because I'm the only Iranian I knew that ever went through that type of struggle where I tried to, join gangs and I was in the streets and I was dealing with drugs and all kinds of shit that I went through that most Iranians don't necessarily relate to. It seems like you kind of went through the similar background. So very interesting to see that we had, again, from opposite ends of life in Iran, but very
Yeah.
similar backgrounds and it's like full circle where we ended up. Very, very interesting.
And Shane, just like what you said, I felt like that as well because, like you said, most Iranians are law-abiding. We got the smallest population inside prisons.
Yeah,
Most people are successful, businessmen, very successful, very, very successful, whether Jewish or non-Jewish. Iranians, we are known as to be one of the most successful
absolutely.
people in the Western Hemisphere. Full stop.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I thought it was very interesting that both of us kind of have the similar struggles that we went through from our background and how
Yeah,
much it
yeah,
impacts your
yeah.
life. You know what I mean? Because who knows if our lives were different and we weren't so fucking traumatized from coming where we came from and from broken families and et cetera, et cetera. Shit, we may have been lawyers and doctors. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting
Yeah.
how much that impacts your whole life. One last question for you. So obviously a lot of Iranians in the diaspora, whether in Europe, Canada, here, everybody for the most part supports Reza Shah Pahlavi. Where do you stand as far as Pahlavi? Are you a Javid Shah type of guy?
I am a strong supporter. I mean, his dad, I wasn't alive in that generation, but based on one of the interviews that I've seen, he became a big headed. He could have played it, cool. I understand that he felt like he was going to get bullied or they were trying to bully him. And let's face it, Shaheen, the West played a big part in putting the mullahs
Of
into our
course.
country. Full
France,
stop.
United
Yeah.
Kingdom,
And right
CIA,
now,
America, absolutely.
and right now they are playing a big part not to take him out of our country. Now, whether this is based on jealousy because we are a clever nation, and I'm referring to all Iranians, whether it's a Jew, whether it's a Lor, whether it's a Bakhtiyari Turk from Azerbaijan, or an
Armenian,
Iranian who
yeah,
is,
whatever.
Persian. I'm referring to all Iranians. We are a clever nation, and whether I'm thinking, do they not want us to prosper? Do they want us to be backward? Or what is going on? What are they so scared of? Or are they scared of Russia and China? Like, what is it? I'm just saying a bunch of things, and I don't know exactly what's the reason behind it. But now, talking about going back to your question, Shaheen, I am actually a big fan of Javid Shah, as I like to refer to him as. His father, again, I feel for him a little bit, but I think he could have stayed in power. He could have done things differently, but
Made a lot of
we can't
mistakes.
change the past. We can
Yeah.
only change the future. But talking about Pahlavi, I am 100% with Javisha, and I pray for his return, and I've actually prayed for his return. I do it every day before Shabbat. Ask God, to make it happen for us, and yeah. So I am a strong supporter, and
Would you? So I know I said that was going to be my last question. One last follow up question. Would you go back to Iran if you were able to?
100%. If Iran becomes a free country, and I much rather even getting called Persia, but that wasn't the question, so let me not go off topic.
See, I'm against that
I
though.
would
I'm
by
against
all
Persia.
means, I would by all means go back to Iran, and I would stay there. I look forward to the day. I'm sure there's going to be flights from Tehran to Tel Aviv, so Iran and Israel are going to be my strongholds, yes, and I will return to Iran for sure. And I haven't had pleasant experiences in the West. I'm not saying everyone in the West is bad, but it's not about who's good or bad. I'm just talking about my experiences and seeing what's happening in this country, in other countries. It's just the West is going backwards, and they have a lot of prejudice. They have done a lot of damage to themselves, and they. I've answered your question at this point, yeah, but I just want to carry on another
Sure.
point if you've got the time.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Now, Shane, I agree with the complaints that they have about illegal migrants coming to their countries. Yes, but they are only picking on certain things. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't be picking on these things, but there's other things that's been happening on their soil for a very long time that has done a lot of damage to their youth, to their society, that they don't bring up. Is it because of fear, or is it because they are just, they just prefer to be around people who they consider cool, and this guy with a different complexion is not cool enough for us? I don't know what's behind it, but one thing the Westerners need to understand, that there is no legal routes for some of these people who are genuinely fleeing torture from Iran, who want to get over here. And I don't appreciate when I see like certain Iranian streamers, with the British flag or the American flag behind them, advocating for far right, where they are son of migrants themselves. Now, because they happen to, have this British passport or this green card, so they no longer in fear of getting deported. So they feel like, oh, I'm an American, I'm a British. Okay, you are American, you are British, and I'm not indigenous to tell you you are or you're not. That's none of my business. I can only speak for Iran and Judaism. That's it. And that's my Judaism, my Iran. I can't speak for every Jew, and I can't speak for every Iranian. Just to make that clear too. So they talking about legal routes. I give you an example, Shaheen. When after my dad ripped up the invitation for me to get to the UK, on just maybe one or two flights, I don't know how it works. I went and approached the Swedish embassy, and I told, my sister had sent an invitation, but it wasn't good enough for me just to buy a ticket. I still had to go to the embassy and talk to them, and to get that final stamp in my passport to allow me in or not to allow me in to Sweden. And a kid with no mum and dad, with his auntie, who is not a criminal, who's under the age of 11, was refused to go to Sweden. So I was forced to go to Turkey, to go to get a fake Bulgarian passport, travel across Europe, live in France for 1 year, experience something very dark in France, and then get to the UK. And then, if I was one of if this happened 2 months ago, I would be on the news, on GB News, on, I don't know, whatever news. Oh, this illegal migrant, he's probably not the age that he says he is, with his hairy legs, coming to our country, raping our women. Now, with that being said, Shaheen, I'm not saying that, yes, there are illegal migrants who come to this country and they absolutely take the piss out of the system, such as benefit fraud, such as, going after they're more interested in going after European-looking women, and they do some dirty stuff. Not all of them, of course. Some of them come here, they abide by the law of the land. But right now, they're just picking on the bad ones, and they've got the right to. So I'm not saying that they are wrong. But what I'm saying is that, for me, for instance, there was no legal rules. So you can't put everybody under the same category, because these people are talking about Iran. 1 minute they're pro-Iran, but the next minute they show Iranian rapist has been jailed, and oh, Nigel Farage is talking about, yes, we're gonna deport the Iranians, and always Iranian. But then on the other hand, oh yeah, Iranians, they show the Pahlavi flag. It's like they're playing both sides. As far as I'm concerned, I can't take these people seriously, and I don't feel sorry for them, because they have an evil agenda, and some of them have, I'll be clear with you, Shaheen, they have like this Nazi feeling.
Yeah.
They just like to be amongst people who look like them. And I'm not that person. People that I've met in Iran are not that person. They're looking to be around fellow white European people.
Well, let me ask
Some
you
of them
this.
are not.
Sorry to interrupt. Let me just ask you this real quick, because I want to see if that'll change your perspective on things. So I was obviously born in Iran. I've been in America for about 27 years. However, I lived in Europe also. I lived in Germany. I lived in England. So I've been around Europe also. I love America, right? Like it's my home. I always appreciate what America has done for me. It's saved my life. If I stayed in Iran, I would have been dead 100%, because I know myself. I have somewhat anger issues. I would have been at these protests going batshit crazy, and they would have killed me. So the only reason I'm alive right now is because of the West and America, and I'll always be grateful for that. I can't ever, discredit them for that. I also understand their perspective of, you mentioned wanting people to look identical to them and wanting to keep the country pure, and et cetera, et cetera. So look at Iran, right? Look at why Iran is where it is today. It's because we welcomed a bunch of Iraqis into the country. It's because we let a bunch of Pakistanis into the country. A lot of these IRGC members are not pure Iranian. They're Arabs.
Sure not.
They're Arabs. You know what I mean? And they've infiltrated our country,
yes.
and they've destroyed it and turned it into shit. So from that perspective, I understand why they want to keep certain people out, because I'm like, oh, we let everyone in and look what happened to us. So I kind of understand where they're coming from. But I also understand your side too, because it's got to be, it is situational,
May I add something to that? Now, if you was to compare Iran to the West, as far as how much people we let in, we don't really let in anybody. If we was to put it in comparison. Now, what you said about the IRGC is 100% accurate, because even before I left Iran, I remember when Obama, the worthless piece of trash whom I abhor, I have to emphasize that, he made a deal with Iran. The police officers were driving Mercedes-Benz. All of a sudden, the country just came back to life. And that was just before I left. And I think Ahmadinejad was the president at the time. Yeah? I remember they had these Lebanese police officers, very strongly built, wearing balaclavas, who couldn't even speak Farsi. They were just giving orders. You see the guy dressed immodest. You see a girl just beat them up, embarrass them in public. They used to put this utensil things made out of plastic around people's neck and embarrass them, and they used to do some crazy, I saw some crazy stuff with my own eyes, and so yes, you're right, but look at the crime rate in Iran and look at the crime rate in the West. You can't compare it. You cannot compare it. Shane, if we was to walk down the streets of Tehran, I never knew about phone robbery. I never knew about somebody standing in the corner of the street selling crack and heroin. They do sell drugs. My dad was a big drug trader in Iran. I'm not going to deny that. But I never knew of somebody who tells his own mother to shut up, or goes and, sits down and smokes cigarettes with his own mother, or brings different women into his house every day in front of his mother's eyes, and a 15-year-old getting pregnant with a baby father she doesn't know. And all of these things comes from the West. Let's face it. You know, they have toxic media. And I'm not anti-West and I'm not pro-East. Just so you know, I'm neither left or right or East or West. I'm with God. And when I say I'm with God from a Jewish point of view. And you might think, oh, so do you expect everybody to be Jewish? No, because from a Jewish point of view, Shaheen, just so you know, before I finish what I was talking about, you know, the West, you know, Iran and the crime rate and what's happening in the West. Look, from a Jewish point of view, if somebody is Jewish, they have to be Jewish. If somebody is not Jewish, what God expects of them is to keep 7 laws, 7 no-idol laws, which is don't worship idols, no idol worship, don't curse God, don't murder, don't steal, don't engage in sexual relations which God considers forbidden, such as homosexuality. You know, you find a partner, stay loyal to her, don't cheat on your wife, and don't eat an animal while it's still alive. And to establish courts of justice. Now, to establish courts of justice, that's not something that ordinary citizen can do. Is the government's responsibility to do that. But what a citizen of a country can do is to abide by the law of the land. So if the law of the land tells you, Mr. Kurosh, Mr. Shaheen, you cannot go to these premises after 8 o'clock because it's private, we don't go there. We don't say, no, God never told us that, so we're going to go there. No, it doesn't work like that. We abide by the law. And there's other things, you know, you don't slap your wife, you abide by the law of the land. You just live a civilized life. That's all that God expects from a non-Jew, you know. But yeah, so I just made that clear that I'm neither left, right, pro-East or pro-West. I am pro-God. I am pro-Torah. I'm, you know, that's all I can say. Now, going back to the West, look, they complaining about, you know, immigration, and I agree with them. Illegal immigration is a problem. Not necessarily for me all the time, but I understand their pain. I wouldn't lie and say I feel their pain because I don't. It's they have created this mess for themselves, and the government is only a combination of, I don't know, 100, 200 people, whereas the population is in the is 60, 70 million. So, and the government of this land, and this is something that I was telling you in Farsi. I hope I'm not repeating myself again, Shane. Please stop me if I'm.
No, go ahead.
Yeah? So the government of the UK, the country that I'm in, is not, of course, like Iran that's gonna shoot its people and gonna start, unless they take weapons out on the streets. Then that's a whole different scenario. So if people, you know, protested and exercised their human rights from the get-go against illegal immigration, against, you know, women getting raped, grooming gangs, and Islam, and hate preachers, and so on and so forth, then for sure they would not be having this problem. But for somebody to just sit inside their home or sit inside of a pub and just to talk about it, and just to, like, you know, talk, you know, say things to a few people he sees on the bus or on the train, get out of my country, you this, you're immigrant, that's not really going to change anything. If anything, that's just going to make things worse, you know. So that's what I said. And there's other issues that this country has been facing for a long time that they just, I don't know, for some strange reason, and I can't really find the reason. Well, the only reason could be fear, but I don't know if that is the reason, is they don't bring up. And one of them being is, like, if you look at the countries with the highest black population, and I don't want to sound like this guy who has baseless hatred towards anybody from anywhere in the world. I'm just speaking based on numbers, based on statistics, right? Any country in Europe that has the highest black population happens to have the highest crime rate. Lithuania, Latvia, Austria, Hungary, Poland have very, very much lower black population compared to France, Sweden, Holland, and the United Kingdom. And United Kingdom, France, and Sweden and Holland happen to have the highest crime rate. Most of the criminals, most of the prisons in London, I'm not going to say all over the UK because probably the indigenous people are the majority, are African Caribbean. They come from African Caribbean background, you know. So something is telling me, you know, all these people are just interested in people who want to live like them, and they don't care if they're criminals or not. Or you know, you know, it's what is it behind the shame? And I would like to, you know, ask you. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you because
Yeah, of
this is your
course.
platform,
Absolutely.
but I want to know your thoughts on that because in America, for instance, there was a period of, you know, black on black crime, which is still happening, and it's, I don't know when it's gonna stop. You know, but no one ever goes out on the streets and saying, "Hey, we've had enough." You know, we've had enough of they've had enough of their fellow Commonwealth citizens coming into the country and, you know, committing all types of crimes, selling drugs, raping women. And let's look at this genre called the rap music, you know. Don't you think that the rap music has had a lot of negative influence, not only on the
Absolutely.
West, but across the world?
It
And
honestly
this
destroyed my
genre,
life, dude. It impacted my life. I grew up listening to rap
but no
music.
one talks about it though.
Yeah.
No one talks about it though.
Yeah. No. That's 100% factual. I grew up on rap music. That's all I listened to, and I did a lot of the things that they rapped about when I was in my teenage years. You know what I mean? That's what it influenced me.
Exactly. I was trying to be 50 Cent. I was the
Yeah.
guy with a
Same.
Junit hoodie
Yep.
who had this fake Junit chain that used to spin, even in Iran. Even in Iran, I used to have this fake Junit chain that used to
Nice.
spin with this fitted New York hat. And I, you know, living in the South, I was quite tan. So came to a point that I was even, oh, I want to be black to that point. Like, you
Right.
know, I mean, thank God the whole hip hop culture is dying down, but it's not. I hope it dies down completely. Because, you know, as again, he's had a lot of negative and still having a lot of negative influence on a
Yeah.
lot of people across the world, you know.
Absolutely.
But Tommy Robinson never talks about it. Tommy Robinson never talks about a white girl who's being, you know, manipulated and bullied by a Jamaican guy or a Nigerian guy to drive cars and to sell drugs, and she's got, you know, bunch of mixed race kids running about, and her baby father doesn't do nothing for her, and she get beats up and punched in the face. My foster sister, her name was Coral. We grew up in the same foster mom. I mean, sorry, we grew up in the same foster home, and you know, my foster mom, Patricia, she was an English lady. You know, she used to come and pull me aside and say, "Listen, he beats her up. Don't say nothing to her. She wears makeup, and I can see bruises on his face." But Tommy seems to be picking only on Asians, which again, I'm not saying he's wrong. Look, I'm not from Pakistan. I'm not from Bangladesh or India or any of these countries, so I got nothing to worry about. You know, it doesn't concern me, and I do have the same feelings that I probably had these feelings against these people before Tommy Robinson, because we both know, Shaheen, in Iran, a lot of rape was committed by Afghani men towards Iranian women, right? Do
Absolutely.
you agree with that, Shaheen?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's always
Yeah.
been a
And
stereotype
so
anyway.
I had this. If people want to call it hatred, I'm allowed to hate what's evil.
It's just
So if you want to
factual.
call it,
It's factual. It's
yeah,
what we
I have
grew up
hatred
in.
towards evil.
Yeah.
I have hatred towards evil. I'm not a hateful person, but I have hatred towards evil. And it's my duty to hate evil because that's what Judaism teaches me. Judaism teaches me to love what's good and to hate what's evil. You know, God is good. I follow God. I bring myself closer to Him, and I embrace goodness. And He hates evil, so I hate evil. I speak against it, and I distance myself from it. And if it happens to be an ideology, if it happens to be a human being, if it happens to be a group of people, then so be it, right? So, back to what I was saying, Shane. I had these feelings that Tommy's having for kind of the same reasons. Yes, before, you know, there was even a EDL or anything as such, you know. So I understand, but why is he not talking about other things? You know, why is he not? You know, why is he not talking about? He keeps talking about Sikhs and they integrate. Sikh, I've look, no disrespect to the Sikh population across the world, but I've never met one who speaks fluent English or with an accent that I can completely understand. You know, And how are they integrating? There are Sikh men who rape white women. There are Hindu men who rape white women. So I'm saying, Tommy, carry on picking on the issues that your country is facing, but you're not picking on all of them. And I say the same thing to any person, whether Persian or a Jewish person or an English person or whoever who is on the right, who calls considering themselves far right or whatever. Just do your research a bit more and open up your brain. Don't be hypnotized just from what I think. I'm not saying, oh, let's ignore these things. Let's deal with all the
Yeah, you're
problems.
saying
You
keep the
know,
energy keep the energy the same across the board, regardless of what culture it is. Just keep it
yeah,
the same.
yeah,
Which I agree with.
exactly.
I do want to mention this though. You mentioned how Caribbeans and Africans in the countries that they reside in the Europe, that's going to be predominantly the countries that have the most crime rate. So I do want to shed some light on that because in America, a lot of Hispanics migrate over here. In Europe,
Yeah,
you have a lot of Muslim countries that migrate over there, Africans. So that's like kind of like the three cultures. It's the Africans, the Muslims, and the Hispanics that you're looking at as far as the West doing the migration and people having issues with it. So I don't want to just solely focus on Africans or Caribbeans. I think any culture that enters the West from a third world culture where we were oppressed, you're gonna have these problems. Whether they're from Africa, North Africa, South Africa, it doesn't matter. If they come from a poverty and that type of background, you're gonna have crime coming in with them.
okay.
You know what I mean? So I don't want to just like say it's just Caribbeans or Africans. It's all third world country people that are entering the West. And again, it's because that's all they know, because that's what you have to do to survive. If you're living in Cuba, probably going to have to resort to selling some drugs or doing some shady shit on the side because jobs are just not really a thing. And
But Shane, yes, sorry.
no,
I'm
no,
sorry to cut
one
you
more
off.
thing. You had mentioned that there's a very low crime rate in Iran in comparison to the West. But I would also charge that, just to be fair to the West, I would also charge a lot of that to the fact that Iranians don't have freedom and we're oppressed. I think if Iran was a free country, you would see more phone robberies and drug dealing and things because that's just that's human nature. Like, you're gonna have good and evil in every culture. Obviously, I do think Iran would have less than the West. There is definitely more crime in the West. I'm not arguing that. I'm not saying Iran will ever have as many murders as America. I live in Philadelphia, man. Every year we have 500 people get murdered in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is not a large city. It's a very small city. 500 people being murdered by guns a year in Philadelphia is batshit crazy. I don't think you'll ever see that in Tehran. And Tehran is 40, 50 times the size of Philadelphia. Probably more. Probably 100 times the size of Philadelphia. You know? But I think a lot of it is just because, when you come from that oppressed and impoverished background, you're gonna bring crime with you because that's kind of what you know. That's what you grew up in.
Yeah, I hear your point, Shaheen. But look. When I was sitting in Iran, I wasn't getting influenced by this Latino guy from El Salvador or Colombia or Peru. First of all, Spanish is not an international language. It's a very spoken language across the world.
Global.
It's probably the
Yeah.
third or the second, besides
Probably
French,
second, I
right?
would say. Yeah, probably second global. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not an international language as such,
Right.
It's English is the internet, right? So I wasn't watching this guy named, I don't know, Sanchez from Colombia
Right.
talking about,
Yeah, you were listening to
how he
50
sell
Cent.
drugs.
Yeah, you were listening to 50 Cent, man. I know.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
if I wasn't listening to 50 Cent, I was listening to Tupac. And if it wasn't Tupac, it was probably Snoop Dogg. And if it wasn't Snoop Dogg, and then fast forward the whole drill scene again, but if we was to, I guarantee you, I mean, and let's bear in mind that, Shaheen, that our country, well, it was considered a third world country before I left and before you left,
Right.
right? But we have history, we have culture, something that, you know what, I'm going to say straight up, some countries don't have.
No,
And
I
I'm not
agree.
going to mention the countries just so I don't get under anybody's skin. right? But we have a rich history, you know. The Italians do, you know, the Greeks do, the Egyptians, and not the Egyptians who are there currently because they
Can
are
I say one
Arabs.
thing? Sorry to interrupt. I know you don't feel comfortable saying it. I completely feel comfortable saying it. Countries like Pakistan, I'm sorry, we get a lot of shit from people from Pakistan. Your history is
Yeah,
not the same as us, bro. You're
100%,
not the same. I'm sorry, you're not.
100%.
You're just not.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a single friend that is Muslim or from Pakistan, India, or any of those places, just to be very clear. And again, I wouldn't want to be friends with anybody from there. And I have my reasons. There's no prejudice. So I'm just
Likewise.
gonna yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Likewise.
I don't hesitate to speak my mind, you know. I'm not, you know, offending anyone. I mean, some people might get offended. Oh well. But look, Shaheen, um, you have to remember that some of these Latinos that you're mentioning were just like us, maybe influenced by the black culture themselves. Because if you
Sure.
look at their dress code, if you look at what they do, their lingo and everything, again, it is a product of
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
black hip hop culture. Yeah. And if you look at Latino countries, there are Latino countries that are flourishing. Just because they don't have the highest currency and they're not like always on the news, it doesn't mean anything. There are, look at the president of El Salvador. I don't know if he's called the president or prime minister. I'm not sure. But look the crackdown that he had on the gangs, and his country is he's resurrected his country. You know, he's done wonderful things. Let's look at Puerto Rico. You know, now again, so I see the Latinos as somebody like myself who are sitting in third world countries with poverty, and you know, black people don't have the reputation of being hard working workers that everybody wants to bring into the country. No, sorry, they don't have that reputation, and they can't argue against what I'm saying. Whereas the Latinos are, I wouldn't say put in measure, say they're 50-50, but they have a lot of hardworking Latinos. You have a lot of, you know, you have Latinos who are right wing, you have Latinos who are lefties,
It's much more
and you know, you
diverse.
got there's a lot of them, you know,
Yeah.
and you have flourishing. But let's look at Africa, for instance. You know, something somebody said once, there's shithole countries, and there are shithole countries. Now, I'm not saying that they're shithole countries because of what the people who live in the country look like. It's because they just don't know how to be civilized. And from what I'm seeing in Europe, they doing the same thing to Europe, to the West, you know. And I hope and pray if Javid Shah becomes, and I hope he becomes the king or the, you know, the leader of our country, or I don't know, leading politician, whatever. We won't have to bring them into our country. I wouldn't want that. I would prefer Iran to remain Iranian, you know, and I don't want the mistakes of the West to be made in our country. And uh, you know, I have to be very clear about that. And neither would I want the Pakistanis. There's probably a higher Pakistani population in the UK than in Iran, and we are next door to them. You know,
Let's keep it that
there's
way. Let's keep it that way. I don't want them. I don't want them in Iran at all.
yeah,
I
for
don't want
sure,
them.
for
Yeah.
sure, and yeah. So let's keep Iran Iranian. You know, I'm more than happy to, you know, have people like the Druze, like the Turks, you know, from Azerbaijan. Lovely people there. You know, very smart people.
But
You know,
that's
very
that's what I meant though. When you were talking about, you know, the Western immigration laws and them wanting to keep their country pure, that's no different than us wanting to keep Iran Iranian. It's the same thing, bro.
yeah. But the thing is, they don't really want to keep the country pure because at this point,
It's too late. I
their
understand.
country
It's
can
just too late.
they
But
can't, they can't, and they won't, and they just don't have the courage to do it because
they
they
want to
just gonna get rid of
preserve. They
illegal
want to preserve
immigration.
whatever English is left in England, though. You see what I'm saying? Like whatever's left, they're like, all right, we've let enough in. Let's not let any more in. This is not helping us out.
And they have to admit that they somehow like to open up their borders, and they like opening up their legs. I'm just gonna say it like this, you know.
Hey, man.
The West likes to open their legs and their borders, you know. And you know, I've had experiences when a white person would favor African over me, I don't know, because he has a name that his slave master gave him that happens to be John Smith, and my surname is too difficult to pronounce. Or because he knows, I don't know. I don't know. He finds him cool because every time he turns on the television, he sees a black person. I don't know. I don't know what's behind it. And it wasn't a nice feeling to see that somebody who's not even from the same race as the other person favors me over him. And they're all like, but anyway. So, that's so talking about what you were saying about the Latinos, I don't think Latinos are the problem for the West. I mean, some of them are, but is again, in the UK, we don't have a lot of Latinos.
Well, America we do though. That's what I'm saying. America's
in America you do, but then bear in mind that a lot of hard workers in America,
That's
even
true.
some of the Trump supporters, are Mexicans.
That's true.
Are Mexicans.
Yeah.
Mexico is not a shithole. Let's face it. Mexico is not a shithole country. We can catch a flight in Mexico and have a lovely time right now.
Right.
But I don't think it would be the same case if we went to Nigeria.
Yeah.
It for sure won't be. And
Somalia,
and
man. So look at Somalia.
And the black people have always been playing the victim about, you tell them one thing, you even say thank you to them, maybe give them an extra thank you. Oh, what, you saying thank you to me twice because you think you don't like me because you're racist, that you feel like you're saying thank you to me twice? I'm just being a bit, I'm just joking. I'm bringing my sense of humor into it. But they always like to place, not all of them, but I'm speaking based on my experiences. And racism comes a lot, they have a lot of racism in them. And it's like, as if you're not white, or if you're white, you are racist, and if you're black, you can't be racist. This is a whole load of, anybody can be racist. A Persian person can be racist, Azerbaijani can be racist, an Armenian can be racist. Anybody can be racist if they want to. And if somebody's from the same race and he hates somebody who's from the same, that can't be called racism. That's called xenophobia. There's a difference between racism and xenophobia. And this country was xenophobic at one point. Now it's xenophobic and racist. I'm not saying everyone, of course, but and I mean, another thing, Shaheen, like if me and you was to go to Nigeria in a hospital, God forbid, we won't get seen by Persian or Jewish or, I don't know, Mexican or English doctor, would we? But whereas in the West, I remember in London at one point, every day I was getting seen by a black doctor. And, what kind of diversity is that? Because, these countries happen to be part of the Commonwealth. They happen to be somehow under this monarchy, which I'm not a big fan of. These are the things that gets under my skin, but I don't lose sleep on it. Put it this way.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate this honest conversation. It's been very interesting. It's been a pleasure. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and YouTube, man. If possible, follow me.
Okay, I don't really do social media. I don't have an Instagram, but you said your channel is called Iran After Dark.
Iran After Dark. Yep. Follow me on there.
And when am I going to see this video uploaded?
I'm going to upload it today, actually. This was my favorite conversation today, so this will be uploaded today. So
This is your favorite conversation
today? Yeah, today. Yeah, I think it's the most interesting one. So it'll definitely be up today. So make sure you subscribe on there.
Just before we go, I'm just gonna say, may Javid shall return to Iran.
Absolutely.
Free Iran, and Am Israel Chai, and
Payande
love
Iran
to all the people.
Don't forget Payande Iran. Payande Iran.
Payande Iran. I don't know about that one. So Payande Iran, may Iran be free, and Am Israel Chai, and yes, that's all I can say.
Hopefully, next time we have a conversation, it could be in Iran, man. Ab gusht is on me. برسی ایران آب گوشت اولی مال من اولی رو میخرم دومی شما
کباب کوبیده
کباب کوبیده میدم چای شیرین
with a few shots of whiskey.
All of it, man. All of it included, man. All right, brother. Much love, man. You take care of yourself.
Shalom to you, bro. All the best.
Take care.